Censorship though.
We're for
Blackout.
What'd you say?
Black guys.
No information. No information.
Oh my God.
Okay, who's for?
We are. So we're starting now? Okay.
All day.
Hello, I'm Scott Wheeler, and this is Norman Saunders, and we are going to debate media censorship, and we are taking the affirmative side. I'll start with our definition of media censorship. Our definition of media censorship is, and that is the monitoring of what people see or hear at any given time, and allowing them to view, hear that information whenever they see fit. So that's our take on media censorship and where we're coming from.
Okay, I am Janelle Morehead. My team member here is Mr. Trevor Milton. We are against censored mediaship simply because, again, let me just go back and say censorship suppresses the information that could be vital to the public. It denies people to assess and make wise decisions on vital information that could be privileged to them. So for that reason, there are many disadvantages for censorship to exist in the government arenas, in a personal life arena, as it regards to the internet, social media, and different platforms. So we will be discussing the pros and cons of media censorship. Well, I'll go first, and I'll just throw out just as an example of why our stance is against media censorship. In the school districts, there has been ongoing decisions about censorship with books, more or less pertaining to sexual education. There are proponents that allege that they are watered down information that is practically worthless because parents might be offended at sexual preferences in school. Classic book that some students could have the privilege of studying is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I don't know if you all have read that book, but that particular book is being banned in some areas because they have racial references that might offend some people. And so for that particular reason, with that particular instance, we are in favor of books of that magnitude to exist because it does give children exposure to different issues that may come about in society. We understand that there may be age-appropriate information, and you want to graduate them to, to certain places as they grow. But however, you don't want to have children be at a disadvantage when there's information that could be educational to them to deal with issues such as racism, sexual content information, or adult content information. So for that, one of our reasons is primarily that, and I don't know if our opponents want to tap in or chime in on that particular subject.
I can chime in on that. So you're saying that the books are taking out information and only allowing students to hear a certain point of view or a certain perspective, correct? Okay. And what I was going back to my opening argument on what we thought media censorship was just not limiting, yours was limiting what people can hear or censoring what they can't hear, period. Ours is not allowing it to be heard or seen during a given time. And as it relates to what you just said, something that it was termed as whitewashing when it came to removing critical information or conflict from any particular event as it relates to history, because you're talking about textbooks. I was saying that that may be true, but I'm not wanting to limit what they hear or say. I'm sorry. read in a textbook. I'm wanting them to have the option to read whatever it is they want and not have it, in this case, they're calling it whitewashing is commonly used in books, and they're removing certain information from textbook. I'm wanting them, like you said at the end, was to gradually have them brought aware of what really happened in history as their age, or I guess their mind of processing what they're really reading happens, not actually removing it completely. So that's one thing we would have to flesh out of our confusion.
Censoring is removing completely.
And I'm not removing, that was not ours, not removing it completely. Ours was just limiting what someone can.
So it should be media limiting, not censoring.
Well, censorship is like a double-edged sword. If used properly, it can be used as a valuable weapon. However, it can be also misused. Censorship can give an unbiased perspective of the ideology of man, contrasting their beliefs of how against certain topics and per se. Censorship denies access to vital information. So basically stating that, if we look at the books, or we look at the books or whatnot, the information that in books individuals could cite as being used as a sense of violence or the wrong propaganda. We look at it from, at least the children have the books and they have the knowledge of what they can probably learn from, or even if the knowledge is wrong, you know, we can still look at different aspects of how we're making an attempt to put the knowledge out there in the book so they can try to obtain the knowledge for the certain books that are, the certain criteria, so to speak.
Well, basically, again, you know, just to reiterate, that our argument is that, you know, as the whitewashing exists, then again, it doesn't give our children privilege to full knowledge. Some things are obscure to them, and it doesn't give them the full knowledge and full opportunity to grasp the education that they can get from some of the textbooks that have been whitewashed. But I want to move on to another part of this, you know, the censorship. Again, our stance, you know, against it is that, I'll give you a classic, well this is not a classic example, but this is more like a current situation where Mitt Romney was speaking to some individuals at a private fundraiser, and he mentioned about the 47% statement. Had that been covered up, or if he had censored, had that been censored, had he had any say about the video being released or published, do we think that that would be some vital information that we as voters could use maybe to vote for or against him?
I would say, would it be vital? No. Someone putting out their, I guess, opinion, I'm sorry, that would be yes. Someone saying, I think this about this particular issue or topic or policy that I want to pass if I become president, is just the same way as he's saying this 47%, he's giving his opinion on his opponent, whether it was derogatory, some took it as derogatory, or whether it was some people agreed with what he said. It was his point of view, it was his opinion, he's entitled to that.
Right.
Other than that, that's all I think about his comment. And should it have been censored? No, it was put out there for a reason. It was censored as in someone just decided to put it out there, so it was not censored. So I would not believe it.
And she's using that as an example, just like with the education in the books. They're just examples for bigger problems. I could make up an example and say a certain elementary school denied their kids of the ABCs. So from that point on, they can't build until they learn the fundamentals. They can't read, they can't write. It's just a smaller issue that blossoms into something larger. In the politics case, if they hide something like that, someone's opinion from us, it doesn't matter what he says to the public, we don't know how he truly feels. So we have people misinformed voting for someone that in the end might be a detriment because of censorship.
Okay, censorship basically prevents a freedom of flow ideas. So even though we make some valid points, we have to look at, you know, the different things about politics. Maybe we have people out here that don't want to vote, or maybe some people don't really look at the 40 or the 47%, or want to even be classified to be in that criteria. So we have to look at it from an unbiased perspective as we are presenting the knowledge. But let's move away from politics, because that can.
Well, I don't really want to move away from
Well,
politics right now, because I think, you know, this is a very strong, supportive, you know, example. Again, you know, sometimes people in public figures or people in high places, celebrities included, can sometimes camouflage their imagery, their image,
Which is a
to
freedom
the
of speech,
public.
right? And they do have the right to do that. That's freedom of speech, which can also be compromised.
But again, it denies us the right to make, you know, decisions whether we want to support them or not. And that's our whole argument.
Like you said, with the